So the Sports 2000s are just getting ready to go pretty much immediately. And this is race number 12 of the weekend. It's race number 2 for the Sports 2000 Duratec Championship. And we'll run you through the grid for this one. It's Richard Johnson set for pole position. Joshua Law behind him. Row 2 is James Barwell in the 77 and Timothy Tudor in the 40. So 21, 91, 77 and 40 on the first 2 rows. Row 3, Tom Stoughton in the number 1. Dominic Lesniewski in the number 3. Row 4, David Houghton in the 8 and Nick Bates in the 4. Steve O in the 50 and Andy Chittenden in the 148. That's row number 5. Peter Brower in the 6 car and Roger Donnan in the 34. That's row number 6. Row number 7, Grant Gibson in the 111 and John Owen in the 28. Andrew Butler in the 9 on row 8 and Colin Peach in the 117. Rounding out that row of the grid. Row 9, Joshua Needham in the 25 and Michael Gibbons in the 76. Row 10, John Eiley and Paul Traherne, cars 44 and 71 respectively. And the 11th and final row of the grid on my sheet is the 88 of Peter Williams and the number 22 of David Gorst. However, that does contradict a little bit with some of the information on the screen, so I think maybe they've got an amended sheet that I don't have.
Good time for me to chime up there.
Go on then, Jazz.
Dominic Lesniewski has withdrawn. Number 3 car was due to start in the top 5, I believe, so he has withdrawn from the race. Good afternoon, or well, actually it's not afternoon yet, sorry. No. Good morning, everybody. I've been enjoying myself that much, you see, Adam. I think it's already afternoon. It feels like it's been a very long day already. I was just down in the pit lane with some of the KA guys, specifically the Grid Finder boys, and it was fantastic to see them going out there and enjoying themselves. And it was a hell of a lot of fun, I tell you. That session was really, really good. I was down there in the pit lane for a bit as well, and I was being a good boy. I was told that I wasn't allowed to go and take pictures in the pit lane because of the personnel limitations and all that. But I was being a good boy, and it was really, really good fun down there. It's a very, very big hustle and bustle. What is going to be a fantastic hustle and bustle now, though, is this Sports 2000 Duratex race. All of these guys were watching the Pintos earlier. They thought it was absolutely amazing, so they know that they have got to definitely show up here and give us what we've got. Based on what we saw yesterday, though, I think Rick Johnson's going to be difficult to beat. Josh Law's going to be there. Barwell and Tudor on that second row were a nice surprise for me yesterday as well. I can't pick a winner from this lot, though, Adam. And I mean, I know these boys like the back of my hand. Yeah, no, it's going to be intriguing, isn't it? We've got... Has Gibbons taken the start? He should be right near the back of the field, yes. He should be on row 9. I'm just trying to see that 76 car somewhere. Yeah, he's behind John Owen, the black green car on the left. So he's a long way back. He was a favourite yesterday, of course, until issues befell him. Green flag waves, and we will soon see the red light, and we'll be underway for 25 minutes of racing for the Sports 2000 Duratex. They're underway. Let's see who gets the best start from the front row. Wow. Best start of anybody's Timothy Tudor. Yeah. Flying start from the number 40. Could he lead it into turn 1? I think he might. Oh, big collision in the 77 car off into the barriers at Redgate. Manages to keep the car on the grass, thankfully, not going back out onto the circuit. But James Barwell there has been collected, and that car is terminally damaged, unfortunately. Yeah, I think Tudor tried to get out. Well, they're all putting their hands up, safety cars out, but I think Tudor he did what he could do. You know, he was staying in a straight line. Josh Law tried to move out of the way, and I think I didn't quite catch it at the time who moved out of the way, but one car went right really hard, smacked into the left-hand side of James Barwell, and that just spat the car across. We were very lucky in a way that it wasn't more cars involved, really, spat back into the road. But James Barwell, so unfortunate. You see how quickly the fiberglass can sort of disintegrate on these cars, but luckily the car held up itself very, very well, and James seemed fine getting out. But that was just a very, very sudden impact, wasn't it? A very sudden turn of events. These cars do dart one way then the other very quickly, and unfortunately they are the margins we deal with. Could see there that Gibbons is in fact out there on circuit. Saw him go through camera. So we'll see how high up the order he can get. He'll be hoping that the safety car period is brief so he can try and climb his way through the order to maybe salvage some of that performance we saw out of the 76 car yesterday. But for now we are under safety car, and that number 77 in
certainly less than minty fresh condition now after that big impact, and glad to see the driver walk away, of course, in the first instance from that. As you said, the car seemed to hold up very well, but that is the end for Barwell's day, James Barwell. And well, the MCR S2 is the predominant car out there on circuit, and of course it is another MCR S2 that we're going to be keeping an eye on, the MGR entry, Michael Gibbons in the number 76. We'll see how he gets through the order, but for the time being, let's run you through what the order is behind the safety car at the moment. It's the number 21 of Richard Johnson that is in the lead. Timothy Tudor has second place, and I think he's kind of taken second place back. I think that potentially Houghton gave him that place back because the move was made just as the safety car came out, running through the Craner curves a lap ago. So it's Houghton in third place in the 8. It's the 91 of Joshua Law who's demoted himself to fourth place there. In fifth place is Tom Stoughton, as we have now actually gone to a red flag, so red flag conditions, as this car continues to be wrestled away. So I don't know, I'm guessing they're going to try and give the full 25 minutes here. I'm guessing that might be the thinking, but the red has been called a bit belatedly. And I guess we'll have to see how long this recovery process takes. I wonder if that may be down to a little bit of barrier damage down there on the approach to Redgate after that hefty impact.
One driver that did get an amazing start, I'm actually surprised he didn't gain more positions from it, was Nick Bates. From our camera shot, Nick, I looked out the window and Nick was on the right-hand side of the grid, but dived very quickly over to the left. And he, much like Timothy Tudor, got to the left-hand side of the circuit straight away, and he got a really good launch. But I think because he was on the outside of Redgate, he just managed to lose those positions again. Looks like even from that angle, it's ripped the front right wheel off the car, but the bodywork's just hanging away that far that it looks like that. These cars are really, really strong. To be fair with you, they're very, very stiff. But the body being fiberglass in most cases, carbon fiber for a lot of them, it just falls apart really when there's that much contact. It's not it's not sort of solid to the frame of the car. A lot of the car itself is just a skeleton underneath. And when you see, like I said yesterday, when you see these cars up close and they take the engine covers off, it's amazing how much free space there is to move around behind them. And that's obviously what the Gibbons would have been grateful for yesterday. It was the clutch yesterday. As Michael said, he lost the clutch early on. He thought it had completely gone, and the clutch was in more than double digits amounts of pieces.
Right, okay. Well, obviously you say the front end of the car quite badly damaged, and those of you who keep track of the Formula One scene will have known that Mick Schumacher had quite a big accident at the Grand Prix in qualifying last weekend. Car did, fall into 100,000 pieces, but that is kind of the point. You want the force to go through the car, not the driver. And if the car, as you say, disintegrates almost, that's a good sign that the car has taken the brunt of the impact rather than the driver, and that's always what we want to see.
It looks like we're going for a full restart here as well with the original grid rather than the running order that we were at then when the red flag was called. So Timothy Tudor has to do all the hard work again. He will not be joined on the second row by James Barwell, unfortunately. So the marshal that was standing there waiting and is still there waiting will have to be waiting quite a lot longer if they are waiting for James to appear. But no, the marshal has moved on now and will pick up the car behind, which would be Tom Stoughton, reigning champion in that number 1 Locks for Vans branded machine, that beautiful new gun he's driving this season. Fantastic looking car as well, the gun. The wing sort of leans forward on that car. It's a really interesting machine. The gun TS11. It's always had the sort of more aggressive looking design than the Duratecs, the MCRs, but MCR have got this new front end this season and the cars look absolutely awesome. There is a front end of an MCR though that we just saw on our screens that didn't quite look so fantastic, unfortunately, which is James Barwell's car being towed back. It was, like you say, good to see that James was okay, because it was quite a hard hit, and it's a solid concrete wall out there. Yeah. There's no tyre barrier at that point, so it's certainly part of the circuit you don't want to go off at. But he is fine, and the grid is now moved up bit by bit. But you can see here, look how far Michael Gibbons went forward. They've actually had to call a number of cars forward to the grid before him and had to sort of hold him back. Yes, indeed. So there will be some people who are excited for the second chance. I think Joshua Law will be happy to suddenly see himself on the front row again. But a few others will be ruining the fact that they're
efforts in the early stage of that race have been null and voided. These are such wonderfully prepared cars. Obviously, you're seeing them there from the Redgate corner. Myself and Chaz also have the option of peering out through our commentary box window and just seeing them here from the side-on view, getting ready to go racing again. There's a lot of work that goes into a lot of these cars, clearly.
And one of the cars that really catches my eye all the time is the number 8 of David Houghton, the number 8 and the number 3 of Dominic Lesniewski, which unfortunately we don't have here with us in this race. The black and grey car is David Houghton, the black and red is Dominic Lesniewski, and those two cars look absolutely awesome, really, really tidy, with that new front end on as well on the MCR S2N, and a new wrap and a new livery for them this season. Nick Bates' car is always one that I enjoy as well. Red and black machine with the big yellow strike down the middle of it. Nick is the series chairman. Really, really lovely bloke. I don't think I've often seen Nick not smiling, to be honest with you. Really, really nice guy. But it looks like we've got our grid ready to go. Ashley Law is with us as well for this one today, which is good because he was suffering from terrible migraines yesterday and decided to withdraw from the race, just have a bit of self-care in the afternoon and just try and chill out ahead of today. And he is, thankfully, back with us on the grid today, which is great to see. He's a nice lad as well as Ash. Spent a lot of time with the Laws, Josh and Ash and his father Ian.
So it shouldn't be too long before we get these cars off on another formation lap, I suspect we'll have. Just a bulletin through on the timing and scoring. Race reduced to 20 minutes in length, so we're going to see the race duration slightly shrunk, and that's not necessarily a surprise. I think we're already a couple of beats behind schedule anyway. I believe we're going to get another green flag lap. And sure enough, off they go. So another chance to warm up the tyres for the likes of Richard Johnson and Joshua Law on that front row of the grid. I'm very excited to see what Timothy Tudor can do from third place, because I mean he had what is now de facto third place, fourth on the grid, but alone on the second row. I mean that was a lightning start that he had earlier on. I'm also interested to see, or I'd be interested to know what kind of effect really this will have on the tyres, because obviously, you know, they've gone out there, they've warmed up the tyres, they've got the race started. Briefly had a heat cycle going through them. They've now gone cold again. They've now got to warm them up again. It's you know, it's all a bit of a faff.
It's intriguing in this championship because it's, you know, they try and save as much money as they can with obviously running these cars. Everybody does in motorsport. You know, you want to do things as cheaply as possible. Not cheaply, but you know, get the best value for your money. A lot of the guys in this championship, there's sort of a gentleman's agreement that people don't buy a set of tyres for every race.
Okay.
You know, they don't go that extra bit to just because someone's got a bit more money, they've got a big advantage. You know, a lot of the teams and drivers will only buy one, even if they do buy them at all. You know, some use tyres from previous race meetings if they've not pushed them particularly hard. They'll only really buy one brand new set per race meeting, which is great. You know, it's lovely to see, and that just highlights the way this paddock is with how friendly it is. You know, there was a couple of cars with problems and broken parts yesterday and issues. Straight away people have sort of come up and said, well, you can have this, you know, have this part of me, I can get another one, or, you know, buy this one off me and so on, I'll give you for this much. There's such a wonderful community in this paddock, not just in the Duratecs but in the Pintos as well, and it's always highlighted every single time I visit these guys, and it's great to be travelling the country with them this year. You know, it's my third season with Sports 2000. It's great to be on a broadcasted event as well, which is great, gives everybody good airtime. And I love it, and there's no other words for it really, Adam. I could go on about Sports 2000 all day. I mean, it's part of my job to do so, but in a different capacity, really.
Yes. No, absolutely. Well, it is great to see your passion for the championship, and it very much exemplifies what goes on in the paddock at large. And as you say, that community spirit, very much a strong element of Sports 2000. As they are now getting ready for this race. Lap 1, take 2, about to get underway. We're expecting 20 minutes of racing. It is Richard Johnson on the inside of the front row, Joshua Law on the outside in the 91. Keep an eye on Timothy Tudor in the yellow and grey car behind in row number 2. He had a good start earlier. Red lights are on. And we are underway. They didn't hold them for long at all. Tudor didn't get the same kind of start this time. A few good starts further back. It looks as though Richard Johnson could have the lead into turn one. But saying that, Tudor did have a little look to the inside. It is Johnson, though, that leads the way. Law just about holds on second. Tudor filters in third. And that was very close. Joshua Law there, I think, didn't want to hang around in second at all, did he?
No, not one bit. And down the inside of Tim Tudor goes David Houghton. Tom Stoughton's going with him as well. I think Tudor's struggling with power again. He did this yesterday, didn't he? He was really quick at the start. Look at Gibbons. Gibbons already up the order. He's ahead of John Owen. And John Owen started 13th. Gibbons started 17th. So he's had a lightning start. But yeah, that was very close with Josh Law and Rick Johnson straight away. There's David Houghton in third place. That black and grey car looking brilliant as ever. Bit of filtering through the order further down. Everybody keeping it nice and tidy where they can. But straight away, Josh is latched on to the back of Rick Johnson right now. He doesn't want to let him get away. No advantage at all. Michael Gibbons is right behind Peter Brower. Now, Peter started 10th, so that shows you big smoke coming from Brower's car, actually, as he makes his way down the straight. Not sure if that was just bodywork rubbing on the tyre or something. It looked very dramatic, but he seems to have got through the corner okay. Let's see where Gibbons is then at the end of the first lap. Bearing in mind he started 17th on the grid. He's 9th. That's fantastic by Michael Gibbons. Hats off to him. Him and his dad were working late into the night with a couple of others as well to get the gearbox sorted and get the clutch redone, and it has certainly worked wonders. Tudor's dropped off the back of this first four, though. He's got Nick Bates behind him, but this quartet at the front sort of splitting up in itself, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, so we saw Joshua Law yesterday getting very aggressive in his attempts to make up positions and making some lunges. Let's see if he does the same this time. Tom Stoughton with a wince-worthy run through Old Hairpin there, bumping over the curbs and almost finding the grass, but he carries on in fourth position, ahead of Timothy Tudor, as we've said. Just ahead of him, of course, is that number 8 car of David Houghton, and let's see if Josh Law can get a run this time. Then we've seen him try and make moves here at the Robert chicane. He has to look to the outside, sells the dummy, and I think that's the move made. Very nicely done from Joshua Law. That was an immaculate piece of racing.
Absolutely wonderful stuff by Josh Law. Wonderful move, and Rick Johnson, you can bet, will come straight back at him. Rick was so happy yesterday when he won that race. He was absolutely over the moon, bless him. It was great to see. Tom Stoughton can see this battle going on, though, in front of David Houghton, and he's thinking, I just need to get past him straight away. He runs wide on the on the entrance there to Redgate, and now he gets a fantastic run off the corner. That's going to give him some good pace down the crane as he's down the inside. That was so close with Tom Stoughton and David Houghton. Fantastic driving by the pair of them, though. Good awareness by David. He saw Tom coming eventually, maybe at the last minute, but still brilliant work to avoid him, and great racing between the two. But Tom Stoughton, he has to get his elbows out and do that sort of move now to get forward and get to the front, because he didn't stay up there yesterday. Finished 5th while Josh and Rick 1st and 2nd. So Tom needs to get on with this now, and that is exactly what he's doing there.
Yeah, certainly Stoughton will be wanting to...
Sorry, I've just seen Michael Gibbons go past Nick Bates. That's 6th place. That's phenomenal.
How long is it before he's fighting for a podium, eh? Tudor gets past Houghton, moves himself back up to 4th place. And as you say, Gibbons is there in 6th position already. And how close is he to the leader? 5.4 seconds. Well, we saw him have a gap of about 10 seconds before the clutch let go yesterday. Fastest lap of the race so far belongs to Tom Stoughton, actually, a 109.583 last time by. So the driver who's now released himself into 3rd place could soon go hunting for the top 2. You see there that Joshua Law has built a nice gap already over Richard Johnson. Richard Johnson, who actually received some activity from Australia yesterday. A few people who tuned into the live stream saying that he should go by Dick Johnson, a reference, of course, to the legendary V8 Supercars driver and owner, but he goes by Richard or Rick, as you say. So not quite the same guy, as it turns out.
Still goes well, though, doesn't he? Just like the Dick Johnson you referred to there. But this is fantastic again from Sports 2000. Cars all flying around at incredible speed. These machines are brilliant to watch on their own. Big lick of flame there as well from David Houghton's car. Tim Tudor's gone past him and sort of put a bit of a gap on him. Let's see how far off the lead Michael Gibbons is this time, because I think this is going to be the main narrative of this race now. Josh Law is doing a wonderful job out at the front. You can see him starting to pull away a little bit. Fastest lap of the race by Josh Law, 1:09.259, and Gibbons is now 5.6 seconds off the lead. So it's still there or thereabouts, but with Josh doing that lap, it's hardly surprising that the gap hasn't closed.
Yeah, no, Law is on a mission here at the moment at the front of the order. He's actually kind of taking Johnson and Stoughton with him a little bit there, following the wheel tracks of the 91 car and finding a little pace themselves. So top three breaking away a bit from Tudor and Houghton, and I imagine that we'll see Gibbons on the back of them soon. In fact, he's already on the back of them. He's already right on the back of Houghton, the back of shot there at Coppice. We'll probably see him through into 5th place by the time they go onto the Wellington Straight. Let's see if we can watch that in the back of shot at all. Tudor's there in 4th place. But I have to see whether or not that's a move made for 5th position. Yes, here we go, side by side as they arrive at the chicane, and Gibbons is quite easily up into 5th place from his lowly starting position of 17th. And I think it won't be too long before he has Timothy Tudor in his sights, although he still has to defend from Houghton here. Goes defensive, then cuts back to the main racing line for Redgate. I would say that move, that exchange, that transaction has been completed in favour of Gibbons. Next target is indeed Timothy Tudor.
He's absolutely flying at the moment, and you know, mentions are worth, well, people are worth mentioning, I should say. Paul Traherne as well, he started 19th, he's up to 8th position now. He's having a good run as well in the gun. John Eiley started 18th, he's moved up to 15th. Ashley Law was obviously 22nd and last on the grid. He's up to 16th place as well, so he's made a bit of progress from further down the order, which is always good to see. So there's a number of guys moving through the field at different pace here. But Nick Bates started 7th, currently sits 7th. He'll be happy with the fact that he's still up there and he's been in a few of these fights. But yeah, Michael Gibbons now, I mean, look at that. The gap back to Houghton across the line last time was only 0.2 of a second as they chased each other down the straight. But I mean, I'm sure that's over a second by now. Looks like the front left bodywork just behind the wheel, though, has come a bit loose. We saw it flapping a lap ago. It seems like that is moving around. Oh, no, there. That's Ash Law. Just as I mentioned him doing well, that's typical commentator's curse. I'll have to buy him a beer later.
Excellent. Ash Law in the 73 car, then just getting himself going again after a moment at the old hairpin. The fact that he's at the old hairpin means that it won't be long before these guys start to encounter traffic as well, so that's going to be interesting. Josh Law just running towards McLean's now, and I'd suggest that within the next 2 or 3 laps he's going to have to start to scythe his way through the traffic. Will that fall in his favour, or will it benefit the likes of Richard Johnson and Tom Stoughton behind? We'll have to wait and see on that one.
We will indeed. And we saw how quickly the gaps can develop yesterday, and even this morning in the Pinto racing. You know, it's a very similar sort of context in these races with the Pintos and the Duratecs. They may look very different, but they just have their own speeds of doing things and their own style. But yeah, we have seen gaps suddenly open and close. You know, these cars can really fall off a cliff sometimes if it's just not quite right. They're very sensitive to any sort of aerodynamic changes, any changes to the tyres. You know, these are purpose-built race cars. They're phenomenal things, but they really can be fragile sometimes, and you can see lap times absolutely plummet. We look here at the gorgeous Locks for Vans branded machine of Tom Stoughton. You can see his neon yellow gloves working away at the wheel, despite the matte black, very stealth-like helmet that him and Rick Johnson both wear. You can see Tom with those very bright gloves. Certainly shows you the work he's putting in as he wrangles the car around the old hairpin. Another fastest lap last time for Josh Law, 1:09.1. He's extended his gap to 1.3 seconds to that man there, Rick Johnson. It's great to see these sort of 3 different cars essentially in the top 3 as well. You've got the newer MCR S2N, you've then got the MCR S2, which is the carbon fibre version that Rick Johnson's driving, and then the wonderful, very flamboyant Gun TS11 of Tom Stoughton. Now, not far up the road here, Adam, there is lap traffic to be considered.
Yes, it's coming up hot for Law, and well, Joshua's done a great job to this point of getting to the lead, staying in the lead, and indeed putting in race-leading performance. But now it gets tricky. In the next few corners, we expect that he'll have to start finding his way around the around the traffic, and that's an entirely different skill set from just pounding in fast lap times, and a critical skill set to have really in any sports car series. He comes through the crane of curves and onto the old hairpin now, and here we go. For the next 10 minutes, he's pretty resolutely going to have to contend with traffic. He manages to dispatch the 103 car of Gorst before they get to McLean's, quite easily done. And let's see what the other Law, Ash Law, does there. Makes it easy as well. Of course, Ash recovering from his spin down at the old hairpin, and he actually gets in the way a little bit there, I think, of Richard Johnson. That might have slightly been the trick of the camera, but it looked for a moment like that was going to end in tears, didn't it? And Ashlaw very resolutely sticking his hand out there saying, Tom, please go right. I don't want you over to my left.
I did wonder for a second whether that was a different kind of gesture, but they have a lot of camaraderie between those boys and Tom Stoughton. They're a really, really good bunch. They have a great laugh. But right now, it looks like Rick Johnson is getting closer and closer to the back of Josh Law. The gap is now 0.7 of a second. And not long ago, we were talking about it being 1.3. Still 9.25 minutes to go in this race. And Josh still holds on to the lead. That's the matter of the fact at the moment. But Johnson is closing in a little bit at a time. They won't have traffic for quite a while now, though, because Ash Law was 33 seconds off Peter Needham. Sorry, Josh Needham, apologies. There's a big, big gap now to the next car ahead. And I'm not sure if they'll actually gain 33 seconds for the rest of this race. We'll have to see.
Okay, so that could be good news for Josh Law. What I will say is his line just now through old hairpin was on the verge of being quite scary. It was a very kind of 1970s Formula One four-wheel drift kind of vibe to it. Just wonder whether or not he, over the course of the qualifying sessions and the race yesterday, whether or not he's maybe taken the best out of his tyres now, because it does seem, in general, that he's getting a bit scraggly. Over the next 8 minutes 20, we'll have to see how his pace looks. I mean, certainly he's still pounding in the lap times for now, but it seems as though the manner in which he's doing it is getting ever more scrappy.
Yeah, the gap has gone up by just a tenth there. It's now 0.8 seconds. Gibbons has sort of slowed in his pace a little bit, unfortunately. Tim Tudor is still being reeled in by him, but the gap is 4.3 seconds. And based on the earlier pace, you know, Michael would have had him in 1 or 2 laps at that sort of speed with the insane laps he was doing. But he's just sort of come to a bit of a halt with his progress through the order. Last time round, Gibbons did a 1:10.6, Tudor did a 1:11.1, so he was still half a second quicker. But it's only a couple of tenths at a time now that he's making that ground rather than a couple of seconds at a time.
I think actually in the last 10 minutes or so, or maybe the last 5 minutes or so, the gap has actually slightly stretched. I think it was as low as 3 seconds at one point, then back out to 5, and now it's at 4.3. So Gibbons seemingly has halted his progress in 5th place, but we'll see whether he can get to Tudor before the end of the race. There goes the Ancaster Ledger number 21 car. Almost looks like a scaled down version of the old Protran LMP1 car from back in the day in those colours. 2006 Le Mans Series fans, raise your hands if you remember that car. There goes Law then, heading through the crane of curves, the number 91 machine, and let's see how he is through the old hairpin this time, because he scared me a couple of times there. That was actually relatively conservative by Josh's standards there, so maybe he's just getting back into the groove and the smooth of the driving, but for the moment he continues to lead quite nicely. His gap back over a second to Johnson in 2nd place. I wonder whether Tom Stoughton can yet have something to say about this, specifically to Richard Johnson.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether he's just going to close in the last few laps, just see whether anything develops first and then really use up his tyres in the last couple of laps here, because Stoughton's really clever like that. You know, he knows when to push the car and when to just maybe hold back a bit and just assess the situation, just make up your mind on how the race is developing and see what you can do with it. Interesting you say that actually about Rick Johnson's car, as we see it, nice close-up shot of it there going through. It's actually still in all of its original carbon fibre. It's actually not been wrapped black. It looks fantastic for it as well. It's a really good-looking car, that. I remember when he turned up at the end of the season last year with it at Snetterton, and I thought that is a very, very good-looking bit of kit. Great to see him doing the full season again as well, and he's a very, very nice guy. As we saw yesterday, you know, it was a brilliant win. He said it was only because Michael broke down, which technically it was, but at the end of the day, you've got to be in it to win it, and he was very humble about his victory, I'd say.
One always advocates for bare carbon fibre race cars. They never look bad.
Nope.
And he certainly has a purposeful looking machine, but the man with the most purposeful look of all at the moment is certainly Law here at the front of the order. He's really hustling his car. And these top three, about the closest three on circuit, and it's so interesting to see the strengths and weaknesses out of the drivers and cars. You can see the gaps kind of extending and shrinking almost from corner to corner. At the moment, it looks like advantage Stoughton, who's closing in on Johnson just slightly, but that car does look like it's set up very stiff, because when we get to the slower or bumpier parts of the track, it looks like it hurts, quite frankly. I'm just wondering there what Law was doing, just seemingly going offline for a minute, maybe getting some heat in the tyres, but for a moment I thought he was slowing down. I got very worried.
Yeah, it's one of those moments, I think, where they test out sort of breaking the slipstream from the car behind if they think they're just in that little gap. You know, if they figure that the gap they've got is what's keeping them together, because that car just picks up a tiny little bit of the distorted air behind it and a bit of tow, then they might just think, I'll maybe move over and get rid of it a bit, because they don't wash off too much speed because of the general pace of these cars. They don't wash off too much speed with a little move across the straight like that, because they're coming across anyway. You know, you're just doing it in a bit of a shorter amount of time. So I'd say that Josh was just sort of testing out to see if he was closing up enough for him to notice. By the look of it, it's actually made a difference here, because Rick doesn't seem as close. Oh, that's Colin Peach into the pits in the 117 Van Diemen. Colin joins us again this season. It's great to see him back. He's not raced with us since 2019, and he's had a lot of preparation in getting the car back out, but he retired yesterday, I believe, and unfortunately will retire from this one as well by the look of it. But still, 3.5 minutes to go, Adam. We keep saying time flies when you're having fun, but it really does with these boys, doesn't it?
It does. The race duration seems to shrink by in an instant. Big shame to see Peach in the pit lane. Of course, he was rather embattled getting through qualifying. Had to qualify out of session yesterday. Side by side there as Ashlaw goes a lap down to the number 4 of Nick Bates. Bates currently running, I believe, in 8th position at the moment, heading a small queue of cars, including the number 50 of Steve O, and Brower in his Lola Fox, which I think is one of the elder vintage cars on the circuit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the ones that's converted to a Duratec as well. Yeah. It was a Pinto car, but it's been converted. Oh, there's a lot of smoke. And that's Josh Needham in the 25 machine. That has definitely said no, and I believe that may be a yellow or, unfortunately, a safety car, because that is parked right at the edge of the road, but he clearly couldn't get it any further away from that. Josh Needham this weekend in the Van Diemen RF02P. His dad's racing a Van Diemen in the Pintos as well, Pete Needham, previous champion of that as well. Josh said he was racing it this time round, and the checkered flag is brought out on the spot. They figured that basically it would just bring the race duration to a close, and Josh Law is your race winner. Fantastic drive by Josh. It sort of died down a little bit, that battle at the front, but they're important points for all three of those boys in this championship, because they are looking like the real hotshots at the moment, as well as Michael Gibbons. Paul Traherne finished sixth place. He's going to be really happy with that, especially after starting 19th. Great drives all the way through the order there, I'd say.
Yeah, there's that battle behind Nick Bates. Bates takes 8th place. Steve-O holds on to 9th place, and rounding out the top 10 is Peter Brower. So that order did actually remain roughly the same. And last lap dramas for the number 9 car. That's Butler, Andrew Butler, with an issue on the final lap. Now that looks to me like Coppice, so I'm wondering if that might be oil down.
It's the exact same spot he went off yesterday as well.
Of course.
It was him that brought out the final yellow flag of the day yesterday with a complete spin there. It just didn't look like he's gone as far this time. That's absolutely gutting for Andrew Butler, because he was having a good run. It just seems like, yeah, potentially oil from, like you say, Josh Needham's car there, pulling over to the side of the road with that issue. I'd imagine it was something to that effect that has caused him to go off. But there is your race winner, Josh Law. Fantastic start to the campaign for Josh. 2nd place in a win, and 2nd place in a win for Rick Johnson. They'll both be really happy boys going home after today.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. Strong start to the Sports 2000 season. A nice full grid of Duratecs and Pintos. Of course, we'll see the latter back out in not too long. We'll only be without Chaz for about half an hour, and then he'll be back with us again for the Sports 2000 Pintos. However, also getting some company in the not too distant future is Alan Hyde, who will be joined by Joshua Law, the winner of our second Sports 2000 Duratec race, and we're pretty sure he's going to be an ecstatic man under that helmet.
He's one of the happiest people you'll ever see, is Josh Law. Watch this.
There you go.
Josh is here, big thumbs up, gets the straps off and climbs out this very strikingly quick car. Super stuff. I'll give you a chance to get your helmet off, Josh, and then we'll dissect the first start, the second start, and the rest of the race. But I think the first thing I have to do is to congratulate you on a beautiful move for the lead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was first start. I got a terrible start, and yeah, and then I just got swamped. I got bogged down on the line, got swamped, and so I was quite thankful for the restart, you know. And then I managed to get a slightly better start and stay with Rick, and then yeah, I just was a little bit later on the brakes into the chicane, and then managed to hold on from then on. But
it was well calculated.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just pleased to be here as well, because the last 3 or 4 laps I was having to avoid all the curbs, especially at the chicane, because every time I touched the curb, the engine cut out.
Right.
It was like I thought I was going to retire from the lead.
That's not good.
I was so scared in the car, but yeah, luckily got to the end. And,
any thoughts as to why that might be or not?
Oh, loose wire or something. I don't know. I've no idea. I just know it was, yeah, I'm glad that it's finished now.
Yeah, well done. Many congratulations, and a great way to open the account this season as well. Good weekend.
Yeah, I mean, second and first place in the first 2 races is a great way to start the season. So yeah, hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Top man, well done. Good luck for the rest of the season. Thanks for having a chat to me. Josh Law down in pit lane. He'll have a couple of photographs taken, I've no doubt, and then be on his way to Park Fairmay to investigate just why on the last 4 laps of that race, if he went over a curb, the engine was cutting out. It does sound like a wire, doesn't it? Josh Law in pit lane.
And so the recovery process to the for the cars that went missing at the end of that race ongoing. You see Andrew Butler being readied for towing, and they're going to see how they have to remove Joshua Needham's car after what looked like quite a catastrophic engine failure for Josh. Those cars being recovered then. Meanwhile, let's take a look at those that did get to the checkered flag. It was, of course, Joshua Law who took the win, even with some engine cutout issues. Richard Johnson finishing second place, a win and a second apiece for both of them. Tom Stoughton taking third place, Timothy Tudor and Michael Gibbons rounding out the top 5. Gibbons did fall away from Tudor there at the end as well. Paul Traherne in 6th place, ahead of David Houghton. Nick Bates, Steve O and Peter Brower are top 10. Andy Chittenden taking 11th position, just ahead of John Owen. Grant Gibson was next in the Van Diemen RF94. Roger Donnan being followed by John Eiley in 15th. Andrew Butler taking 16th place, first of the drivers to go a lap down. Ashley Law recovering to 17th after his spin. Good to see him out today. David Gorst in 18th. Colin Peach, of course, with a problem towards the end of the race as well. Joshua Needham in 20th, not making the finish, though, of course, having those problems that ultimately saw an early end to the race. James Barwell and Peter Williams not classified there owing to issues. Of course, James Barwell having that big hit on the barriers there on the inside of Redgate. The Sports 2000's weekend is not quite over yet, because the historic Pintos will be back out later.